Perfect. Thank you. So just to share a bit about Access Employment with you. So Access Employment is a not-for-profit organization based in Toronto, Ontario. Its mission is to assist job seekers from diverse backgrounds who are facing barriers to employment to integrate into the Canadian labour market. It achieves this by providing employment services, including job search services for newcomers in the Greater Toronto Area and online services to pre-arrival clients internationally, linking employers to skilled people and building strong networks in collaboration with community partners. Just a few of our successes. So last year, we served over 35,000 job seekers in person and online through pre-arrival and online services. We work with job seekers from all around the world that are have rich experience from their home countries. And we see ourselves as a connector between this talent and employers who are looking to support them with filling roles with their businesses. We know that it's increasingly difficult to find strong, committed workers, and our job is to profile and connect employers with many job seekers that we prepare and work with. We have a strong success rate of placing 86% of our job seekers in jobs and in training opportunities, and 99% of them would recommend our services. I'm still looking for that 1%, so I can convert them. Sorry. So now I'd like to share a little bit with you about our barista training for newcomer youth, which is in partnership with Starbucks Canada. So in 2016, Starbucks committed to hiring 10,000 refugees globally by the year 2022. And for Starbucks Canada, the national target was 1,000 refugee hires by 2022. So Access has a history of responsive and customized programming that addresses the needs and expectations of specific job seekers and particular sectors, as well as for employers. So Starbucks Canada engaged Access to provide strategic guidance on education and support service programming and in support of recruitment for this target population. So Access began by running recruitment events for Starbucks with a focus on opening doors for refugee youth. And from that, this program evolved and was developed, and it was to provide refugees and newcomer youth with training, support, mentoring, and employment opportunities. So the Barista training program for newcomer youth with Starbucks Canada provides supports to newcomer youth to secure competitive, entry-level employment opportunities as baristas in Starbucks locations across the GTA. So each year, a minimum of 120 newcomer youth who are facing barriers to employment participate in a 4-day training session where they learn about Starbucks corporate culture and the barista role, earn industry-recognized certification in customer service excellence, and develop their knowledge of Canadian workplace culture and hone in on their interviewing skills. The program includes the following components. There's a vocational assessment done on day 1 with an accelerated workshop series of progressive candidates, cross-cultural coaching, and cultural sensitivity training for Starbucks managers, and one-on-one language and communication coaching for the youth, both pre and post-hire. And lastly, on the last day, the 5th day, there's an employer-led mentoring opportunity followed by a recruitment event. So the Barista Training for Newcomer Youth with Starbucks Canada program was co-created and co-delivered with Starbucks Canada. The other delivery partners included our OTEC, which is a not-for-profit organization supporting employment service innovation for Ontario's hospitality and tourism sectors, and Magnet, a social innovation platform. So Access is a proud partner with Starbucks Canada on this program to target newcomer youth unemployed individuals. The program has gained tremendous results, and we're thrilled to be working with a company that's dedicated in making change in the lives of youth and new Canadians. As a result, our partnership with the youth we're working with. It's helping them build their networking skills, they're forming partnerships and friendships, and they're developing a sense of community and creating strong and more opportunities for employment. The goals of the program are very simple. They're to support the participants of Newcomer youth in the local economy, to support the integration of Newcomer youth in their communities, to increase youth employability skills that boost their long-term career prospects, and lastly, to increase the capacity of employers on onboarding and retaining Newcomer youth and demonstrating leadership in this area. The program model. The program model includes customized and comprehensive supports for participants, such as training, language learning, and industry-recognized certification. The program also features a variety of employer engagement strategies, and for participants who are successfully hired, there's a post-program coaching and work-based learning opportunities for the youth. So at this time, I'd like to share a quick video with you.
About 2 years ago, March of 2017, Starbucks made a bold, ambitious goal of hiring at least 1,000 refugees in Canada over the coming 5 years. When we set that goal, public commitment to hire 1,000 refugees in Canada, we didn't really know how we were going to accomplish that. So we started to do research and make contact with organizations in Canada that were familiar with the refugee community and were employment service providers. And as soon as I began reaching out to organizations, I was directed to Access Employment in Toronto as one of the key service providers that knew the newcomer community and were successful in refugee hiring. So they were one of the first organizations I reached out to and began a conversation with them about a hiring program that would be tailored to refugees coming into a Starbucks entry-level position. I think one of the novel features is the relationship we have between the employer and Access. The relationship means that we learn together, we gain insights in terms of what works, what doesn't, what makes it more efficient, and it's an ongoing, sustained process. It's grown from those original conversations with Access to a hiring program in Toronto that we've then expanded across Canada. And we're doing something similar now with service providers in Vancouver, Surrey, Edmonton, and Calgary, all basically based on what we learned and developed with Access in Toronto. There's a number of elements that we track, which, by the way, we're on track to meet our 5-year target. We've now 2 years in, have hired over half of our goal. So we're over 600 refugee hires nationally in Canada over those 2 years. For us to be successful at that scale, the hiring process that we work out with the service provider has to be efficient. One of the factors is when we hold a hiring event where Access selects and coaches a pool of candidates and pre-schedules them for interviews for Starbucks to do. And our Starbucks hiring managers come to Access at their office to hold the interviews. One of the factors is the ratio of job offers to interviews. So if we have 30 interviews and we only make 3 job offers out of those 30 interviews, that's not an efficient event. If we hire 25 of the 30 interviews, that's a fantastic ratio. And so we track those events and that ratio. And we're getting better success at these hiring events than any other recruiting approach that we have in the company. From an employer perspective, there's probably not a more significant KPI, key performance indicator, than retention. For a business case, for an employer to take on any kind of hiring, Reducing turnover is the flip side of good retention, and there's a huge cost saving and cultural impact when you have long retention. And this program has been super successful. It's beyond our own original forecasting and projection in terms of retention. The retention numbers, based on a sample size of, as I mentioned, around 600 hires nationally, are approximately 20 to 30% better retention, which is actually quite a staggering figure.
Ross covered most of these key features of our success. So the effectiveness, the program incorporates a range of theory and evidence-informed approach to the interventions that are among the most effective in improving labor market outcomes for newcomer youth with short and long-term timeframes. And like I said earlier, it includes, the training, the language learning, and the industry-recognized certificates that the youth receive. The effectiveness, the efficiency, the program includes a pre-program activities to determine the client's eligibility and suitability for the program. The participants do a vocational assessment at the beginning, which is based on their interests, needs, behaviors, motivations, and these are benchmarked against Starbucks' perceptions of the behavior, skills, and capacities that are most necessary, or what's a great fit as a barista role, or other, and it could lead to other program opportunities as well, or other opportunities in the service industry. So the training sessions are held at different locations across the GTA, and they're determined based on Starbucks' hiring needs and the areas that they're hiring in. In terms of relevance, the program was designed with an employer's hiring need in mind, and the format of the training aligns with Starbucks' expectations for the barista role and are adjusted based on client and employer feedbacks. So for example, when we first began, the program was a 3-day program, but when we heard back from Starbucks and certain additional needs that they identified, we modified the program, and it was a 4-day program with the 5th day as a hiring. Sustainability, as we've said, Starbucks has committed to hiring 1,000 refugees here in Canada between 2017 and 2022, and they're at about 600. So we still have a little bit of work to do over the next few years. In terms of transferable, this program has the potential to be scaled and replicated across Canada, and as Ross mentioned, it has already started in certain other cities. And we're also at Access Employment exploring the potential of customizing this training for other large employers. So we're in conversation right now with IKEA Canada. In terms of innovation and forward thinking, the program takes an innovative approach to supporting an employer to meet their hiring needs and incorporates social responsibility goals while also supporting immigrant client group to secure meaningful employment and enhance their long-term career perspectives. So let's keep going because I'm almost running out of time here. So Access, we mobilized several internal departments to ensure that the performance of this program. And these internal teams include our quality assurance team, our program development team, the data management, and program teams directly. So the performance of the program is enabled by organizational structure and capacity, but at the end of the day, it really starts with the program staff team. And there's an amazing staff team that works with the youth to all week long to prepare them for the hiring event on the Friday. So the program has a high performance program which is currently meeting all of its enrollment and employment targets. So now for research. There's our evaluation strategies conducted. There's a large component to that. So we use survey tools and interviews directly with clients to ensure that we're evaluating all elements of the program. The surveys are delivered at multiple phases during the week and also informally. So the clients do have an opportunity to speak to the program staff and give their feedback directly. But we've also contracted a third-party evaluator to build out an evaluation framework. And so the third-party researcher is conducting evidence-based research, and the feedback that's being provided to the team so that they can adjust the client service needs to meet those needs. So we secured the funding for the evidence-based research and evaluation component through IRCC for their service delivery initiative, and the funding was allocated specifically for developing an evaluation framework. So at this point, we're still building out the framework, but we are evaluating different components as we're going along, and we hope to have the framework all completed within the next month or so. Sorry. So this is just a smaller snapshot of the program outcomes. I know Ross talked a little bit about the larger. So we just looked at this past year, and there was a total of 75 newcomer youth, which represented 2/3 of the program participants to date. And they were all hired by Starbucks in various locations across the GTA, and then there was an additional 30 newcomer youth that secured employment elsewhere, but also all in the service industry. And our findings in terms of retention is that at the 3-month point, 84% were still employed. And lastly, I just want to quickly share a success story from one of our participants who went through the program, and she said, you know, how fabulous it was. And she felt very supported and very supported by the program staff, and that she would recommend this program to her friends for employment opportunities. And that's about it. Thank you.